This is Tony for aminutemidnight.com bringing you a short update on the Californian fires, New Zealand's carbon tax, Agenda 21 and the climate change scam.
The power is still out in Northern California and across a wide swath of the state. The blackout was planned by public utility officials to reduce the risk of wildfire as high winds mix with dry weather. But many don't agree with that timing or reasoning. And as William Brangham tells us, the anger is building around the state.
So there's this article in The Guardian. Record power shutoffs in California are set to become the new norm, with nearly 800,000 customers affected. In the largest shutdown this year, the utility is hoping to avoid a devastating fire season. Now, as with so many of these types of articles, you have to sift through what is propaganda and what is actual truth and the real reason for things. Amid fierce winds and dry conditions, the utility company that serves more than a third of California will cut power to an unprecedented swathe of the state as a preventative measure against wildfires.
PG&E shut down power over fears that high winds could bring down lines and start wildfires.
And with Pacific Gas and Electricity at fault for two of the deadliest fires in California's history in just the past 2 years, major power shutoffs are set to become a new normal for a state gripped by the, quote, my quotes, the climate crisis. So there's some of this nonsense propaganda.
Southern California under siege as firefighters struggle to contain the Saddle Ridge fire.
Within 5 minutes, this whole entire hill was engulfed.
The inferno exploded across hills and down valleys on the northern edge of Los Angeles.
Starting early Wednesday, PG&E will shut off power to portions of 34 of the state's 58 counties, affecting almost 800,000 homes and businesses. The preventative shutoff will not be the first the utility has undertaken this year, but it will be the largest, with parts of Silicon Valley and the coast affected. Now, so we can go on with the power shutdowns and so on that have been happening. But PG&E declared bankruptcy in January in part because of the potential liabilities from its role in some of the 2017 Northern California fires and the 2018 Camp Fire that killed a total of 129 people and destroyed tens of thousands of homes. Investigators traced the origins of some of the 2017 fires to trees falling on power lines. Now, this is where we get to some truth. In some cases, trees that should have been cleared by PG&E because of their proximity to the lines. In the Camp Fire, a tower constructed in the 1920s, well past its projected lifespan, was implicated in the cause. Now, if you read properly through this, you see that it's not climate change that's the problem. It's poor infrastructure maintenance, cost cutting and so on. And so people are set to suffer power cuts because maintenance on the power lines hadn't been done properly for years and years, and maintenance on the trees near the power lines hadn't been done properly. And that's the real reason, not climate change.
PG in general should have taken care of this for the last 50 years.
Folks, if you haven't watched the video I made last week titled, "Is the Climate Emergency a Giant Scam?" endorsed by Pope Francis and the UN, please watch it and share it. It explains the whole basic agenda behind this climate change scam, which is all I can say that it is. Now, since making that video, I came across a very good article here titled "Top New Zealand Scientist Describes Global Warming as Pseudoscience." The widespread obsession with global warming climate change in opposition to all factual evidence is quite incredible, Dr. David Kerr. Dr. David Kerr is a former Director General of New Zealand's Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, the DSIR, and as such he would have been considered one of New Zealand's top scientists. He has been publishing on sea levels since the 1950s, And this article details a whole lot of reasons why Dr. Kerr, along with so many other scientists, are saying global warming and climate change being man-made is a load of bunkum and there's no real evidence for it. And incidentally, for those blaming climate change for the California fires, here's an article from NASA. Researchers detect a global drop in fires 1998 to 2015. Globally, the total acreage burned by fires declined 24% between 1998 and 2015, according to a new paper published in Science. Scientists determined that the decline in burnt areas was greatest in savannas and grasslands, where fires are essential for maintaining healthy ecosystems and conservation. In New Zealand, we currently have an idiotic government that seems hell-bent on destroying this country and using climate change as one of their excuses for doing so. There's an excellent new article in Investigate Daily. It says, "Climate shocker, New Zealand's zero carbon bill goes too far, breaches Paris climate agreement," and it's written by Ian Wishart. New Zealand's Labour Greens New Zealand First government appears to have seriously breached Article 2 of the Paris Climate Accord in its proposed zero carbon bill, putting the credibility of the country's climate change policy at risk. The zero carbon policy has seen hundreds of thousands of hectares of good farmland sold off on a fast-track process to foreign carbon credit investors to plant forests, and it's seen as a serious drop in dairy, beef and sheep production. If it continues, the 12 million hectares currently used for farming will dwindle further, and the 1.7 million hectares of mostly foreign-owned forest will grow considerably. Farmers are warning the zero carbon bill threatens our ability to grow food as more and more productive land is converted to forest, in a reverse of the land clearing policies of the 19th century. Further down it says, the Labour Greens New Zealand First obsession with killing off farming by planting trees on farmland and selling the carbon credits to carbon billionaire traders like Al Gore is a climate change policy going not just further than the Paris Climate Accord requires, but actually in direct contravention of it. It's a get-rich-quick scheme for carbon investors that is also having the effect of breaking up and destroying Fonterra and other New Zealand food producers competing with massive food multinationals. It's a globalist dream. Eliminate the competition by purchasing their farms and turning them into trees. Monsanto, Nestle and other globalist giants must be rubbing their hands together with glee. So basically, folks, in New Zealand we have this insane socialist government at the moment that's hell-bent on destroying food production, taxing farmers and planting pine trees, heading towards a zero carbon emissions to fight the non-existent boogeyman of man-made climate change, meanwhile decimating New Zealand's food production. I'd like to see Jacinda Ardern try and eat pine cones. That is, of course, if the foreign owners of the pine forests will be kind enough to sell her any of them. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is basically the follow-up for the diabolical Agenda 21, which was largely the brainchild of Luciferian Maurice Strong, the father of climate change, is an agenda, a plan of action for the people, the planet, and supposedly for prosperity. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets which they announced demonstrate the scale and ambition of the new universal agenda of the United Nations, which is, in its own words, managing its natural resources and taking urgent action on climate change. Basically, as I've pointed out before, they will not be content with people who don't drive cars, are vegans and vegetarians, and don't heat their homes with fires and natural gas. The end goal is basically depopulation, and part of the way they are doing that is by moving people off the land to where they want them, and that is out of areas which they can turn into their conservation areas, and also through the limiting of food production. And actually, as I've been doing this, I've discovered an article by All News Pipeline written by Stephen Stanford. It's titled "Sinister Signs Globalists Have the United Nations Agendas on the Fast Track, with Seeds Being Planted to Sow Chaos. Were Forced California Power Outages a Beta Test for the Rest of America?" And think about this for a minute. While the globalists are trying to ban cash and bring everyone into a digital system of money, when there's no power, such as in California, how's that going to work?
In the meantime, residents stocked up on ice and supplies, shopping in stores left in virtual darkness. Businesses that stayed open had to operate cash only.
Folks, if you found this video helpful, please like it and share it, and visit aminutemidnight.com.